start? What'd you say? Should we start? I guess so. Okay. Do you want to start or do you want me to start? I think you should start. Are you sure? No. Okay. Okay. All right. Is that okay with you guys? Okay. Wait, did you mean it when you said no, you're not sure? I don't know what I meant.
What's the one premier event that brings the global attractions industry together? IAAPA Expo 2025, happening in Orlando, Florida, November 17th through the 21st.
From breakthrough technology to world-class networking and immersive education, IAAPA Expo 2025 is where you find possible.
And just for our audience, you'll save $10 when you register at iappa.org/IAAPA Expo and use promo code EXPO, APROS 10.
Don't miss it. We won't.
Welcome to the AttractionPros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the AttractionPros podcast.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Josh, it's going fantastically. How are you, sir?
How am I? I've been awake since about 2:45 a.m. Central Time. Woke up in Chicago, got all the way here. I've had at least 7 to 12 cups of coffee. So I am just running on caffeine and I am ready to go. How are you?
Ready to rock. I am doing well. And we are in a different place than we've ever been before to record the podcast. We are in...
I have absolutely no idea.
Oh.
I landed at Phoenix, got into an Uber. It took me far away into the desert, and now I'm here at a casino on stage with you.
Perfect. Perfect. We are at the IATP conference here in Arizona. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Give us a big round of applause. Hello. We are so excited to be recording the 421st episode of the AttractionPros podcast.
Wow. Okay. For those of you who have just heard about this podcast for the first time, we were not exaggerating. This is episode 421, so you've got a lot of catching up to do. We have published fresh content every single week, that many times in a row. In fact, the very first interview that we published on this podcast was at the IATP conference. It was during that week. I remember being in Palm Springs on the elliptical machine, had my headphones in, and just thinking, we can only go up from here.
That's right.
And here we are.
And here we are. Now, wow, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Since we are recording the
Say
more you all applaud, the better it sounds for the people who are not in the room when they're listening to it later. Should we try that? Okay.
What did you just say? I wasn't listening.
I wasn't even listening myself. I said the louder you applaud, the more people can hear that when listening back to, because we're only recording audio. So let's pretend like we've sold out a football field here, like this is an Oasis concert.
Taylor Swift. Let's go bigger.
I know, I'm just talking about a band that's currently on tour.
Okay.
But you're right. Taylor Swift and Oasis performing together right here just south of Phoenix, Arizona.
That's going to be a great...
Thank you, Travis. Love you too.
Yes. All right, so Josh, we are here, IATP conference, having a great time. We've got some incredible people up here. What do you say we stop talking and get them to start talking?
That's what I love about doing this podcast, is how little we actually have to talk except for this banter part.
So, we have assembled a crack team of professionals, people that you want to suck all the information out of their brain so that you can be better at what you do. So we're going to go ahead and have them do a quick introduction of who they are, where they work, what they do. Give us 30 seconds. Brandon, let's start with you.
All right, well, some of you heard me
Well,
earlier.
that's all the time we have for today. Sorry, everybody.
Thanks for playing.
So I'm Brandon Willey, CEO of Intelliplay, and then also a co-founder of the LBX Collective, which is runs a bunch of different podcasts that covers the location-based entertainment and attractions industry.
Yeah, woo, woo, yes. Greg, take it away.
I am Greg Spittle. I'm the Vice President of Partnerships at Roller Software. Prior to that, I started Activate Software before I sold it to Roller. Before that, did various other things, but yeah, a little over a decade in the industry.
Excellent, excellent. Woo, woo, there we go, yes.
I didn't know we were doing cocaine before the podcast, guys. Phillip Howell, CEO of Best American Trampolines.
Awesome, awesome. Let's big round of applause for Phillip down there.
You look like you had that like I'm about to talk look, so I just sat back and let you take it.
We're not used to doing this in the same room with each other. However, we are excited to be able to speak to these gentlemen, to maybe hear from some folks in the audience today. We are talking about tech and trends in the trampoline park business. So let's start kind of in the beginning of where this industry started from. Phillip, let's start with you. You have built parks. You know what it's like to put them together. What was that like in the early days to start building trampoline parks?
Pretty bare. Back in the very beginning, I mean, we were going into warehouses and filling those warehouses up with 10 to 15,000 square feet of actual trampolines. Probably the highest tech item that was in those parks at the time were the vending machines. No party rooms, no decoration on the wall. They were pretty stripped down compared to what you see today.
Awesome.
Phillip, I'm curious just to tag on that. In those very early days of the industries, what were those trampolines? What were they inspired by? Was it just backyard trampolines? Were these types of systems in place in other areas and other capacities?
Not really. I mean, to be honest with you, our first trampoline park, our non-trampoline park trampoline park, was a guy out of Utah that called me up and wanted to be a dealer for our backyard trampolines. He bought 75 of them, and I found out about 6 months later that he had strapped them all together in a warehouse, and he was going to charge people to jump on those. And I'm like, what a dumbass.
And here we are.
Of course, I kept up with him to find out that in this tiny little town of 12,000 people, the guy's doing $20K a week, and I'm like, maybe there's something to this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Greg, you said you've got over a decade in the industry. So let's talk a little bit from your perspective, from the data perspective. What are you seeing that when you first started out that maybe has changed since then?
Yeah, so I think not just from the data perspective, but I know when we started Activate 10 years ago now, the idea was that there was just not great technology in the industry. There's so much lacking for what the industry could do and needs that it just wasn't being provided. And so that was the idea behind creating Activate and going from there. And when I look back, now versus then, it's so different. Being able to actually track everything that your customers do and how they do it and where they're going. And I mean, when you start talking Intelliplay, there's crazy stuff that they're doing, but from a point of sale perspective, just being able to enable, the confluence of all the systems and programs in the park to come together into one place and to be able to aggregate that data in one spot and utilize it for being able to understand better of what you can do to market to your customers and differentiate yourself. It's incredible.
Greg, I want to ask you a similar question that I asked Phillip as far as what were the point of sales like back then? Was it, and sort of what did you identify as being, hey, here's the problem that needs to be addressed? Was it restaurant software? Was it just old school tills and cash registers? What was that like?
So yeah, I'm not going to name any names because a lot of those providers are still around, and I don't want to disparage anybody. But I remember.
Come on, Greg, do a little shit talking.
We're gonna have to bleep that out later. I don't know. But no, I remember testing one of our competitors' softwares early on, and I was on their online checkout. And as I clicked through, if I made a mistake and I wanted to go back, it would start me over at the very beginning every time. And I remember trying to actually go through their workflow to the point where I just gave up. I was like, I have a vested interest in finishing this workflow, and I gave up. What do you think your customers are doing? And so that idea of just not really designing modern software, a lot of it was just old, antiquated, had been built for other industries, hadn't been built for our industry and our specific needs. And so there's just an opportunity to go in and change that and make it better. And that's where, starting with Activate, now Roller, that's what we've done. We've gone out and created a modern system. And again, from Roller specifically, one of the key things we're doing right now is creating an ecosystem around Roller. It's bringing all those things in the park together into one spot and being that central hub of all that information. And that's really, when I look at my job, that's my job at Roller, is to make that happen.
I think one of the things that we've really seen over the last 10 years, and I've been in the industry now for a little over 10 years as well, is the change and shift to just to focus on guest experience across the board. So this is not just from how a guest can check out for birthday party booking online, but also like how are they coming in and getting their waivers done? How are they coming and doing their booking if they're walking through the door? To just the park design and layout as well, or anything else that might enhance that guest experience. It's just a focus on that across the board in the industry, and I think that's really where we need to be thinking about, both from a product development standpoint, from an attraction development, or just a park development. How can we make sure the guest is having the best experience possible from before they even come into the park, all the way to the point where after they leave the park, what are they getting from reviews and other things that they can then continue to enhance that guest experience?
Yeah, I would say that even going back to, when Phillip was talking about the early day parks, you could throw trampolines in a warehouse and you'd make money at it because it was unique, it was different, it was something that kids want to come do. But nowadays, if you want to compete, you've got to have a beautiful park in a great location. Like you've got to market, you've got to do all the things right. You've actually got to run the business. You don't just put it up there and make money. And to be fair, that's the same thing with the technology side. If you try and run it the way that you ran it 10 years ago, that you just kind of we'll buy a waiver system and we'll use pen and paper for this, and we'll use Google calendars for our birthday parties, and we're just going to wing it and make it happen, you're going to end up with a terrible guest experience. And they're not going to come back to your park. They're going to go somewhere else that can provide them the experience they're looking for. And yeah, it's important you got to keep up with the times, and it's changing fast, not just the park design, but the technology behind it as well.
Absolutely. So there's something, Brandon, you said that I want to touch on because you kind of talked about that guest journey, right? The before, during, and after. And when you look at technology, there's a bit of technology in every piece of that journey, right? Also, from a build standpoint, their experience has to be good while they're in the facility, so that later on, when they go to do that Google review or whatever, they're saying good things. So I'd love to hear your perspectives on kind of that before, during, and after journey, and what it is that operators can do to be successful in each one of those phases.
I'll start with just the before. So I think I get the opportunity to go and see a lot of different parks, not just trampoline or adventure parks, but all sorts of location-based entertainment venues, and do reviews of them and other things. And one of the biggest things that I think is the most frustrating thing for me, and I think for other guests, is the juxtaposition between what they see on your Facebook page or what they see on your website and the ability or inability to see what experience they're going to have when they come in the door. And then if they see something and it looks amazing, maybe you're starting to use AI for generating images because you don't want to pay for a photographer to come and take a picture.
Brandon, I think those images just come from Google.
Yeah.
Most of the park sites I see.
Yeah, well, I mean, so this is part of the problem, though, is I'm going to look and see something that I'm going to see an image, and I'm going to expect that that's what I'm going to experience when I walk through the door. And then when I walk through the door, it's a totally different image. There's trash on the floor. The attractions don't even match up to what I saw online, and that immediately sets the wrong tone for when I come through. So that upfront experience needs to match the experience that I'm going to have when I walk through the door.
Yeah, I would second that, not just with the experience part of it, but when I look at the first experience or the first interaction that a customer has with your business, now that is typically online. That's your website. If you haven't gone and looked at your website in the last couple of years and what you have is what I'd say from a Roller perspective, your online checkout and how that all flows, you're going to end up with pissed off customers before they even come in for the first time. You're going to start from a negative, not even from zero. And so making sure that they have a great experience, and then that experience that they're seeing online matches what they get when they come in the store, 100%.
And that's if they buy at all. If you've got that poor online experience of just the ability to just fall off and say, this is too frustrating.
Absolutely.
Phillip, what about you? So when they're in the facility and you know that you have to match what the marketing team has said, and then you may even walk into a facility you've built and say, this is not what it says on the website, you know? So I'm curious from your standpoint, from the build standpoint, from the this is what people are actually doing, like how do you approach that to make sure that you're making the right decisions for the guests?
Well, to be honest with you, I think the park that we're building today is just so much more polished. I think it's got to feel warm and inviting, lots of graphics, you know, a good mix of attractions, but also you've got to take the parents into consideration, right? You've got to have adequate seating for the parents, televisions for the parents to watch. That's a big piece of it, because the earlier parks, right, just had a bunch of picnic tables, and if they happened not to be hosting birthday parties, then, you know, a parent, you know, had the option to sit down on a nice hard picnic table. But, you know, in reality, I just think it's overall just polishing up that park completely. And as far as, you know, what we provide to a lot of our clients today is a lot of renderings and fly-throughs and things like that, so they're not out there nabbing, you know, imagery from, you know, Google of some other park, you know, just to show that, hey, we're going to have a dodgeball and a main court and some of these other features, but actually show what's going in their park.
The other thing I could mention about Phillip's Parks in particular, tying it back to what Brandon said, is one of the things that I've seen him do for years, we've obviously been friends for years, is, you know, when he goes and puts in netting around a dodgeball court, he doesn't just string it from the ceiling and it's all hung and looks kind of janky. He actually puts in a frame around it, and it's got a very clean sight line. And his pads that he makes are going to be, and I'm not trying to pitch his parks, I'm just saying the things he's taking into consideration.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah.
Do you want to give your phone number now?
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like I'm pitching his parks.
Our
I'm not.
website is...
I'm just saying that the idea is that he's going in there, like his pads, he tries to make sure they never have wrinkles in them. Because the first thing you see when you say a wrinkly pad is it looks dirty. And I've heard him say that 1,000 times in the last 10 years, is it's got to be clean, it's got to look clean, it's got to have clean lines. And that visual that you get when you walk into the building is important. And that's why, I mean, you've hired muralists and other people to come in and paint the walls and to give it a feel and an environment that's just different.
I hate those wrinkles so bad. We're currently working on a pad with spandex. Unfortunately, it's going to increase the price by about 45%. But no wrinkles.
Or Phillip will just come and iron all the pads before you get all the wrinkles out. Spray with starch, right? You know. But, you know, to that point, Greg, and to, yes, I guess to Phillip's point, kind of tangentially, of just the optics impacting the perception. You say you see a wrinkled pad and it looks dirty. That might have anything to do with cleanliness or a spilled drink or anything that is actually custodial. It is purely the optics. And if we think back to about 5 years ago, I remember one of the things that we were talking about just, you know, during the pandemic was, you know, sanitation theater. And I think something like that really carries through today, that thankfully we are not nearly in the situation that we were in 5 years ago. But those optics, when we think of the phrase, you know, perception is reality, if something looks to appear a certain way, that's the takeaway that they're going to have. And if they take it away and they say, this park was dirty, and that's what's in your Google reviews, then even if your park was immaculate, that is now what is influencing the decisions of other people to come visit your parks.
Now, with that said, I was actually going to throw in a little tech piece from Roller. We do have a guest experience score that allows you to, in some ways, intercept that Google review and try to turn it in your favor before it ever gets online. So there are some things you can also do from a technology standpoint to make sure that that's being taken into account.
I know this is a tech and trends seminar, so I guess, you know, what we'll maybe do is shift from the before they've walked in, when the time where they're walking through the door. I think one of the important things as well is making sure that it is clear, that the guest has a clear understanding of where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to do when they're walking through the door, especially depending on why they're there. If they're there for a group event, if they're there for a birthday party, if they're there just as open for open play or open jump, that they know where exactly they're supposed to go, so clear signage and other things, but more importantly, that they have the ability to do self-service through kiosks or other things where they can go and they can actually pay and take care of their booking and sign their waivers and do things through self-service. But at the same time, I think one of the things we want to do is like, okay, what can we do to optimize as much as possible the reduction of staff, operationally, like make things high tech and seamless, But we also want to make sure we give people options. So when they walk in the door, they could do the self-service if they want, but they also have the option to work with somebody who's going to help them figure out which session they should be buying and what package they should be doing, because it also gives you an opportunity for upsells and other things if you have your staff trained in the right way to get them to maybe do a higher level package than they maybe would have done otherwise. And I know that Roller and others have that ability for upsells through their kiosks as well. But we want to make sure we give options to the guests when they're coming through the door.
Just to tag on to that a little bit, everything you're saying as far as when guests coming in, where do I go, what do I do, making sure that that message gets to the most stressed and flustered parent. And I can tell you that as the father of a 4-year-old, the first time I took him to a trampoline park, he was ripping off his shoes before I could even finish signing the waiver. He was about to bolt right in. And so making sure that I knew, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, there's a barrier here, making sure he's not getting in, bringing that into the technology side of it. That I think is actually where you have one of the biggest advantages that is least tech savvy, and that is your staff. That is your people making sure that they are identifying those needs of the guest. Now you talk about having kiosks. Yes, that absolutely can reduce labor. And one thing that's really great about that is instead of having that 1-to-1 ratio of that one team member with that one register or that till or that one point of sale, is maybe that now goes 1-to-4. So now you're able to, in theory, cut your labor into a quarter, but still being able to have the same level of attentiveness from the staff to identify those immediate needs of the guest.
I think that's one thing I would tag on to, is that I've seen a number of parks fail with automation, thinking they can just put a kiosk out on its own to just serve customers. And that's the thing, is that the technology on its own is never just going to serve the customer. You need the human element in there as well, that you can pair one employee to 4 kiosks, but you need to have the employee there. You can't just leave the kiosks out there and expect success. So it's something to keep in mind if you guys are planning on implementing that sort of technology in your parks. You can't do it without the people. You still need some people. It can be reduced, but not zero.
Well, and I think that also speaks to how well trained those people are that are there, because now instead of 4 people where you could say, oh, Brandon, I don't know the answer to this question, can you help me? Now they may be out there on their own. And so they've got to either have the information or know where to get that information very quickly so that they can serve the guests, so they're not just relying on that kiosk, and they say, hey, there's a person here that can actually help you do that. And there's a real balance in that, and probably an art to that ratio, so when your guests are coming in that they're being served by someone and they're getting the experience that you want them to have.
Not a 16-year-old on their own lonely island, basically, all by themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I think that brings up, as you were talking about the kind of the during experience, they're walking in, the during experience, having a great time. Let's say that they have had a great time and now it's the after. So talking about techs and trends, what are some of those technology factors that we should be thinking about after the visit? They've gone home, maybe there's a follow-up, maybe there's a review for them to do, maybe there's an intercept so you can make sure that you're taking care of it before it gets out there to the public. What should we be watching for?
Yeah, so I'll take that. Whether you're using roller technology or other technologies out there, because there are some others out there that do the same thing, I would absolutely have a post survey, something to try and gather the guests' feedback. To be fair, most people aren't going to give you feedback. You usually get it when they're extremely happy or upset. And even a little bit upset, you're usually going to get some feedback. And if they're really upset, you're really going to get some feedback. Which is where the intercept helps, is that rather than posting that for the world to see, it's like give them an avenue to come back to you with. And so I think that's really important. And then the other piece I would say is making sure that you are working with a good partner that can provide segmentation around email and text marketing post-visit, something that is going to continue to engage that customer to come back and to think about your brand the long term. And so making sure that you've got something in place there that it's not just, I've got my website, that's all I need. I actually need to be communicating to my customers and telling them about what's happening this month and why they should be coming back in and all the other things. And that can be automated and really, again, take little effort as long as you get the right partners in place to do that.
Trampoline parks, adventure parks, karting and some others have a massive advantage over other location-based entertainment or FECs in that you guys have a mandatory waiver for them to come in. And what's beautiful about the waivers sure, whatever, a little bit of like liability protection, et cetera. We can argue that. But it's marketing data that you get from that, right? So there's email addresses, it's birth dates, it's phone numbers. You have this marketing data that's sitting there in your point of sale or in your waiver service if that's not connected, if that's a separate one, not connected to your point of sale. Export that, put that into a marketing automation platform. There's lots of great ones out there, happy to like provide some suggestions afterwards or whatever, but there are lots of really good marketing automation platforms. You want to keep engaged with your customers. The thing though, I will say you really want to do is make sure that engagement, whatever that is, the emails you're sending out or the text messages have actual value to them. It's not just saying something because you happen to have their information, because that's going to devalue the information they've given you. If you're sending them a promotion of some kind or a reminder about your upcoming membership opportunities that you have, if you're selling a summer membership or a new, a school year membership or whatever that might be, provide that as value to them, and then most importantly, build a birthday club. If you haven't thought about that already, have a birthday club that goes out at 30 days before that kid's birthday. The parent is getting a text message or an email saying, "Hey, come in, book your party with us. Here's a link to do that through online booking. And by the way, here's an extra $25 gift card or a game card or whatever if you have arcades. If you don't, use some other value add, and to get them to actually book with you."
Yeah, I was just going to say that along those same lines with birthday party booking, looking into the data that you have in your system to see how far in advance are your customers booking birthday parties. I know when I was running Activate, our average was 21 days in advance was when birthday parties got booked. Most tickets were booked less than 2 days in advance. And so the way that you would market to those two different groups of people are very, very different. And when you're thinking about birthday parties, those parents are usually thinking about those birthday parties well in advance. So 30 days, maybe even 45 days before, starting to put the idea in their mind of this is the place to have your birthday. And working up to that date. Again, probably not too much last minute. There's going to be some parents like me that'll forget, but keep it in advance on the birthday parties.
So Brandon, I was going to say, because I've heard you speaking for years of the benefits of the data and the marketing automation. I wonder if we can kind of segue that into just the advantages today of wearable wristband technology, if you want to kind of use that as a springboard there.
Yeah. So, one of the things, obviously, Intelliplay has the Intellibands, tracks the kids or the guests. It doesn't just be the kids, the parents wear them too. The guest location in real time throughout the facility, as well as other activity. One of the benefits of that is we now know, based on demographics, we pull that in from roller waiver data, et cetera, is we can pull in that demographics and where they actually spent their time while they were in the facility. So we know which attractions were getting the most play, we know where the particular age range was, and even what that down to the particular guest and where they were spending their time. And so if you know that this particular kid or family or whatever really likes the dodgeball arena, then you segment that. And if you really want to get specific, you can send segmented emails to those people who play dodgeball most frequently, and then send a dodgeball, have a dodgeball event or night or something like that, or some other thing. And so it really allows you to get refined as far as understanding where people are spending time in your park.
Yeah, you made a comment, or you asked a question earlier about the before, during, and after when it comes to the guest experience and the technology. And prior to Intelliplay, there really wasn't anything of the during the guest experience. You had a lot of stuff leading up to that. I think a roller, and that's a lot of what we do is leading up to the actual experience itself. Going online, purchasing a ticket, checking in, the birthday party management, all the rest of that comes before the actual experience. Once they're in the park and the experience starts, there really was no technology that took over. And then as you left, you have email marketing and all the rest, and you'd have a bunch of stuff afterwards. But during the experience, there really was nothing. And that's where Intelliplay comes in and adds the technology that as we go forward is going to carry the parks into the future.
And also talking about the guest experience, one of the more awkward things for both the employee and for the guests is hearing on the megaphone or over the PA, "Hey, yellow bands, your time is up, time to get off the floor." It's not, and then if you see still some yellow bands running around there because the little guys aren't getting off the floor, you got to go and send somebody to go have them walk off the floor. One of the benefits with a band that shows the time, shows when their session is, when their session is good, it's green. When their time is up, it turns red. It just streamlines those types of operations, and it just improves the overall guest experience as well by just making sure that that you're you're not having to call out when somebody's banned and their time is done and making it awkward for everybody.
I remember the first time I saw that, and when the bands went red, it was almost like an inherent response of like, from a kid, you're taught, red light, green light type thing, and like it goes red, and you just all of a sudden see like a mob of people just go whoop and move off the court. And I remember, with paper wristbands, I've never seen that happen before in my life.
I was going to say, especially for a toddler, I mean, the herd mentality. I mean, when I again, like taking my son to the trampoline park, literally was pulling him, dragging him off by his legs.
For those of you listening to this, on the podcast, like poor Josh is like just got his head in his, just rubbing his head with toddlers. You can tell he's dealing as a young father. Yeah.
Go for it.
I was going to say one more thing about kids. So again, back in my Activate days, I remember going to a customer of mine, a trampoline park, and I had my son with me. I was on vacation, but there was an issue that happened. And I was like, I'm just going to run over there. I'm like 10 minutes from the park. Let me just go see if I can help out. And I'd called the manager ahead of time. And I'm like, I've got my son in tow. And he's like, oh yeah, bring him over. He'll be able to play. He was like 6 at the time, 5 maybe. And I was like, all right, that works. And I'm a dad, not a mom. So I show up and I was like, go play, buddy. And sure enough, I couldn't find him. He was gone. And it's one of the things that I think about with Intelliplay, where it's like you can actually track where your kids are. If they leave the park, you get a text message, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Greg, was he gone for good, or?
I found him.
Just checking.
I wouldn't be here. I'd be dead.
I think one of the cool things that I've also seen over the last few years just evolve in this industry is, it started from just strapping some trampolines together, probably super unsafe in a big warehouse, whatever.
No,
but
sure
it started from that space to now. I mean, we had one of the other award winners today at this at the awards luncheon was CSE. What they've been doing from active entertainment, sportainment, that kind of stuff. You've got Valomotion, you've got Rugged, you've got other great groups out there that are doing lots of really innovative things, from just gamifying the experience and enhancing the overall technology experience for the guests when they're in there as well.
You're absolutely right. There are some phenomenal companies out there that are creating gamified play within the facility, which is absolutely changing the trajectory of where the industry is going. That you can't just strap trampolines together anymore. You've got to add something to that experience for the kids, and there's a ton of great companies out there doing that.
So clearly, Phillip, they're telling you that you can't strap the trampolines together anymore.
Apparently not.
Yeah, Greg was looking at you sternly.
That's really going to screw up your demographic there. But I have a question specifically for you based on something that Brandon was talking about, especially with those bands, where they can now really segment who's doing what and finding out what people really like, and they love the dodgeball or they love this particular attraction. Do you feel like in the future that would help to inform you in how to build and design a park?
Yeah, without a doubt. But I mean, I think the ultimate goal with the product is to gamify an entire park, right? So get these kids off of the games, get them into active gaming where they're actually moving through the park. I mean, we're working on, a number of products right now that would be dialed in specifically for use with this product. But for people that have existing parks, once we start rolling out the pods and the sensors and things like that, it'll give you the ability to go back, gamify what you already have in your park. And we're already seeing a huge difference right now with the leaderboards and stuff like that on a very minimal level compared to, the direction we're headed.
My favorite stat actually is the very first park that the bands went into. If you go back, and again, they're a roller park, and you go back and look at their repeat visitation rate of customers, how often people are coming back in. They were pretty much steady at 60% prior to bans going in place. And after the bans were in place, we're actually up to 78% repeat visitation. And so a very significant shift change. You go look at their stats of like how much water and ices they're selling because kids are way more active or just through the roof. And it's really a very unique experience.
I'm curious, and looking out to the future, and this question is for any or all of you here, as far as what that gamified experience looked like. You gave kind of some insight into where we're going, kind of in the near term, short term here. What's the overarching vision? I'm saying there's this gamified experience, this active play that obviously it drives that repeat visitation, but just makes that in-park experience just absolutely incredible as far as being able to foresee what is beyond what's available today.
Well, I mean, I think the goal with this product, Intelliplay or Intelliband, was that you're going to, gamify a park, right? But in addition to that, you're going to drive all the scoring and point accumulation through an app, okay? Which, then, a park owner can choose how they decide to reward you for the points that you've accumulated in that app, whether it be birthday parties, free jump time, merchandise, things along those lines. But in terms of just getting that repeat visitor back through the door, I think that point scoring piece of it and being able to retain that's going to be huge.
Yeah, when you think of what arcades have done over the last 20, 30 years with redemption, where you go in, again, when I was a kid, you got little tickets printed out, and you saved up all your tickets, and you went and redeemed them. Now you get them all on a card, right? It's the same concept that Intelliplay is creating an experience wherein you can now create that redemption experience, which is important to the psychological effect of the gamification to the kids, and again engages them in play, gets them active, gets them from a guy who's got a son who would rather play his iPad than go out and play sports. For me, it hits home. It's not just something that's ethereal, but actually like real, where I can actually see him get excited and go play because he sees his name up on the leaderboard and he gets points for it and he's earning something. So.
I think just in general, right, gamification of the active play experience, I think, is important, regardless of what platform that might be. I mean, kids are going out there and they're sitting at home and they're earning achievements by playing, their video games, and they're ranking up, and there's a level of persistence. They can play against their friends and do other things. They want that same experience that they're going to have at home, but they want that experience out there in your parks. And so this is what's great about even a lot of these other products that I mentioned earlier, is that they can go and earn rankings and earn achievements within that particular game. I think where we maybe see the vision long term in general is that they can actually rank up across the board in the park as a whole, and that those rankings and those scores and those achievements persist as well from one visit to the next. Right now, it's like, I played this game and I ranked this high, but like one of the best things, if you think about back in the old day, the retro arcades, and you had your arcade and maybe you had the top score, you were in the top 3 of Missile Command or Centipede or whatever, and I'm going back to some old games, but like you would come, and if you looked and you like showed up again and you were like deranked, you're like, oh, hell no, and you take your quarters, you slap them down, and you start playing again until you rank yourself back up to the top. That's what we want to make sure is happening inside these parks. Like, they jumped 1,000 times, they're at the top for that week. They come back in the next week, they see they drop down to the 5th spot. Okay, we want to get them to come back in and rank and get back up there. Drop in those quarters, so to speak. There's more visits coming back in to make sure that they're able to rank back up there. It's the same type of mentality and psychology we want to bring into the active play environment.
I love hearing you guys talk about how this is not just based in the tech, it's based on how humans react to things. So you're talking about those old school arcades. Asteroids was my game. Had to get the high score on it.
The high score, huh?
Yeah.
Have you played Asteroids Recharged by Alan 1 yet?
No.
No, you got to do that. All right,
Okay.
IAPA Expo, we'll play some Asteroids Recharged together.
Nice.
What are you guys talking about?
Google it. But no,
We're not
I mean,
scientists.
this is all about how humans interact with one another. It's how humans interact with the technology. And I don't think we can have a tech talk without those the two letters AI, right? To talk a little bit about that. So I'm curious if each one of you can maybe share how you are using AI, maybe where you see it going, but also maybe even some times when you're like, I just don't need AI. I can do this on my own, or maybe even examples of places that like they tried it and they went back to doing it more organically because the AI wasn't actually beneficial to them.
I can jump in there, but I'm going to caveat this and say there are only a few things I'm allowed to talk about because there's some things Roller's working on that I can't talk about. So, with that in mind, I'm going to talk more ethereally about what AI would do.
I don't even know about this.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I was actually warned before I got up here. I think there's a colleague out there that told me you're not allowed to talk about that.
I just use AI for emails.
So one of the things I think to realize is that AI is still in its infancy. There's still a long way to go. When I think about the internet back in the late 90s or even early 90s compared to what the internet is today, those are worlds apart. They're different internets. And what AI is going to be 5 years from now versus what AI is right now are two very different things. The capabilities that will be there in the future will be so dramatically different than they are today. It's mind-boggling. With that said, we're in an industry that is a human experience, an active play environment. AI can't just take over. Like, it is something that humans have to be there. But what's interesting is where AI succeeds the most is when you have data to feed that AI, the information to feed the AI. And I'll just say, the thing that I can speak from personally is that what Roller's working on from a partnerships perspective, which is my job, is to go out and try to create an ecosystem where everything resides and revolves around a centralized data repository, so that in the future, if there were an AI that were helping out in that arena, it would have lots of data to pull from and to be able to utilize as you start looking into the future of what you'd want that AI to be able to do for your business, how it would be able to feed up insights and ideas to you, and even give you feedback about what you're doing and how you're doing it. Just to name a few, not to even think about some of the things it could automate for you in working with customers and other things. But honestly, I think some of that might even be better done by a human, because that's what people want. They don't want to work with an AI. They don't want to work with a robot. They want to talk to a human.
I think that it does come down to having options, right? So I think you just, as we talked about the kiosks, like I have the option to do self-serve and work through a kiosk and not have to work with a human because maybe I don't want to. But I've got these crazy kids and they're running around, and like it's the most I can do to just get myself, something booked and get the kids in there and get bands on. So having that option to be able to talk to a chatbot, for example, that has come so far from where it was even 2 years ago, let alone like the early day chatbots that weren't even really Gen AI driven from 5 years ago. What can be done now by loading in all of your basic SOPs and other processes? You load that in as core data into a custom GPT. And I know I'm throwing out words. We can talk again more about this later if you even care or want to know more. But you can load this kind of stuff in there. And now all of a sudden you have a resource, not just for your customers or your guests who are coming in. Hey, what do I need to do this? Or what's the rules about this? But for your employees, we were talking a little bit about like training new employees. Now employees can have a resource available if you've taken the time and you have written SOPs, and these guys aren't like going to go and read all of the stuff that you've produced, but hopefully you've gone and produced all of that. Then you can load that into a GPT, and then they can just query that and talk to it and get the answers back about the different things that you have operationally in your park. And that can be done for like $90 a month, right? Like through a ChatGPT Pro subscription. I mean, this is so little with a little bit of work to go and put that tool in front of your employees and now make your employee experience so much better to then be able to deliver a better guest experience as well.
Some of the things that we've been talking about earlier, I feel like we're kind of calling back to. You talk about like the birthday club, and like most people like book a birthday party 21 days in advance, and having that queued up to send that automated message, or the kid who really likes dodgeball being able to send targeted marketing. As you guys were explaining that, I was thinking from the lens of an operator that sounds exhausting to be able to manage because of just the infinite amount of just permutations with that, of just how many options you have, whether it's segmentation into marketing and then actually creating structures and packaging. Now we bring in the conversation of AI, and it sounds like that strips out 95, if not more, % of just that stress of just thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's the next version or level we'll see this year and going into next year through all the different major AI companies is we call agentic AI. So you have generative AI, which is the large language models, it's the chatbots, it's the stuff that we've been dealing with for the last few years. Agentic AI is the next level, which is now you have these agents that are going out there, they're AI agents, and they're doing work for you. And so they can take all the massive amounts of data. Again, you need the data, birthdays, et cetera, but you can instruct these agents to go and build a marketing campaign for you, send out the marketing campaign based on these segmentations, and it'll just go and do it all for you in the background. Like literally you just go and like wash your dishes or something because you got nothing else to do.
Because AI cannot wash your dishes yet.
They cannot do that yet, although that's coming. Yeah.
Well, and that's really the idea there, is that, you said it earlier, which is right now with all of that data flowing in, so the negative side of the technology is you get all this input data that's coming back at you. And as a business owner, I've been there. There's just too much going on sometimes. You don't have the time to go in and do all the data analytics and sift through all the input data you have and figure out, what are the 3 things I should be doing next to advance my business. And Some of the best operators do a really good job at being able to pull themselves out and to do that. What I think AI is going to do for us in the near future is be able to take all of that data, synthesize it down into something that's more consumable to the business owner, give them a couple of choices to choose from, and then they can still make that decision. You don't necessarily even have to let the AI just go do it on its own, but let it synthesize down that information so that you're not on an information overload anymore.
One of the other easy ways to use AI is just to use it as a chatbot and just ask it questions about like what promotions should I run for my thing, because it has the entire web open and available to it. So it's going to go out there and it's going to look at all the different types of promotions that have been run for your type of park or your type of attractions and be able to present different ideas for you. So like if you're ever running into a mental block, right? Sometimes it's just a good way to get things flowing. And then you can say what promotions and say, all right, well now draft up a newsletter for that particular promotion, and it'll go and do that for you. It may not be what you actually end up putting out there, but it gives you a huge leap forward to be able to circumvent maybe some of the roadblocks or like the mental brain blocks that you might have. It's just a way, it's a good companion to work with. I work with it on a daily basis and for all sorts of different things.
See why I'm friends with these guys? I just built trampoline parks.
Greg, I wanted to follow up.
And then you throw a trampoline builder up here.
There you go. Greg, I wanted to follow up on something you said, because whether you're using AI or not, there are specific things that every operator needs to look at in their business so that they can move their business forward. In your opinion, what are like those top 3 things?
Oh, that's a good question. Dang, you put me on the spot on that one. I would say I would want to be looking at trends. Are you just somebody help me out here? I'm floundering. Help me. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's just meant to be clarifying. Is this for like what are the things you need to have in place in order to use AI, or just
how to run the business?
Just running the business. Yeah,
Okay.
whether you're using AI or not, these things that you need to be looking at.
So this is going to sound really basic and dumb because I'm going to have to boil it down to 3. So what's driving my revenue? So what is it about my business that is driving revenue forward? What is my number 1 product? I would say for most family entertainment centers, you base your business around birthday parties. And the reason I say that is that birthday parties not only bring revenue for you, they market for you because kids are inviting their friends that may not have been to your business before. They give them that first experience in the park. It gives them a customized experience because there's usually a party host that's taking them around and showing them the process. And so it's a great way to introduce. It usually ends up being 25 to 35% of a business. It could be more. I've seen a lot of businesses that rely heavily on it. It's 70, 80% of their business. But it also drives food sales, concessions, and everything else. And so birthday parties are a major part of that. Understanding how birthday parties impact your business and drive the rest of it. So that's the revenue side. Obviously, looking at other revenue drivers you may not be using. I know I spent a lot of time talking to a member of the audience here today about memberships and how that's an important driver these days of one of the pillars of your revenue side. The second piece would be obviously costs. So your labor, understanding labor costs, understanding how much labor you need at given different times of the day, the week, the year. Again, not something that Roller does, but we've got great partners that do that and feed that information back to you. Another great area where AI is going to be able to come help dramatically and improve that. And then the last piece I would say is your guest experience. And so again, as I boil it down to like the 3 things I'm focused on, how are my guests interacting with me? Are they enjoying the experience? Are they excited about it? Are they coming back? So that repeat visitation rate. Again, there's lots of inputs that might tell you the same or different aspects of the same information about that guest experience. And so it's focusing on like what are those different inputs I have available to me about that guest experience. Again, that's some of the information about Intelliplay and how it can feed information about the guest experience is hugely impactful.
And then if I could add, I'll do 3 things, but I'll put them underneath the guest experience bucket. So not the other 3. So 3 things you should be looking at for within your guest experience. The first one is just making sure you have phenomenal employees. right? I mean, the primary driver, like typically if there's going to be bad reviews that you're going to get or negative or any sort of criticism, it's going to have been impacted by an employee. Maybe not directly, it could have been even indirectly because you had dirty bathrooms or your snack bar wasn't staffed or whatever that might be. It's going to be driven by the staff that you have. And so making sure they're well trained, making sure they understand their expectations, what expectations you have of them, etc. Right? So I think that's one core area. The next one would be the attraction mix that you have. Really understanding and knowing, do you have the relevant and correct attraction mix today? Maybe you did 5 years ago, maybe you did 10 years ago. Do you currently have the right attraction? Should be looking at some of the new things, the new technology, the new ways to frame, having your netting framed and better sight lines, etc. And I know some of these are capital expenses, and so it's not always easy to think about, but making sure that you're really paying attention to the attraction mix and whether or not it's relevant and what can you move or take out or swap out or test partly for a period of time, whatever there might be. And then the last one is to really just experience the park, experience your venue as a first-time guest. And do this like once every 6 months. And I mean like literally from your home, like take a day or take 2 days off or whatever from your home, go online onto your website, browse on your website, but put on your like totally noob guest who's never walked in the door before and see and go through the entire experience. Come in as buy a ticket from your kiosk or buy a ticket from the front counter from your employees. And I know your employees are going to know who you are, and so it's going to be maybe a little bit of a different experience. Or somebody who's very familiar up here with secret shopping from back in the day, right? So get some secret shoppers or whatever, but go through that experience from start to finish as a guest, and so you really can pay attention and keep your eyes open to all the things that you would probably be picking apart if you're walking into one of your competitors. I should guarantee you, if you've done your competitor shopping, you go in and you're like, oh, I could have done that better, oh, that's terrible over there, or this was a bad experience. But do that to yourself as well.
So one thing I would add to that is when I was running Activate, when we would release new functionality that was guest-facing functionality, we actually had a network of, I'll say moms, but friends and family that weren't part of our team, were just completely external, just friends and family of me, of employees, of different people in the company. And we would have them go and use the software and give us feedback. Like, did we miss something? Is there, is it confusing at a certain point? And then we take that and refine the process based on their feedback. We didn't do it every single time because it takes a lot of extra time to do that. But if we were making major changes, we did that, and we had a network to do it with. You guys have friends and family. You have people in your networks that want to help you out, that are willing to spend a little bit of time, not every single day or every single week, but a couple times a year where it's like, would you mind just going on my website and just give me feedback about, was it easy to use, was it not easy to use? And they will do it, and they'll, because again, it's sometimes hard to go with fresh eyes to something you've been working on, but somebody else is willing to come in and help you to do that and give you that feedback, and then you can go improve it.
So we are, thank you for that. I think that's such great advice. And we are getting close to kind of running through the time that we have. So I want to turn our attention to the future. So as you think about building new parks in the future, as you think about data use in the future, as you think about the guest experience and engagement in the future, what are some things that you'd like to leave the audience with, just maybe some nuggets to think about as we go into the future? And Phillip, we'll start with you.
Ooh. Well, I can't get into this too much, right? I've got some competitors in here just going, yes, tell me more. We are working on things behind the scenes, right, that again really lend themselves towards this gamification piece, to work with these bands, sensors, pods, things like that on a level that you haven't seen before. Again, you can do that on a simpler level right now, but that's the goal, in my opinion, is to fully gamify a park. And that includes working with our good partners like, Valo and Rugged and guys like that, right? To where, we can even retrieve scores from a lot of their products, right? And then suck that into our app. And yeah.
My turn. I would, again, couch the answer right around guest experience. That 5 years from now, whether we have AI running things or running the world or not, the experience we deliver to the guests is still going to be the number one thing that we need to focus on. I think the advice I'd give is don't be afraid of technology. It's coming whether you want it or not. I look back when I was a kid, it was coins. We were putting quarters in machines and we switched to cards. And, you go from, on-site server type technology when you had, some of your initial technology, and now it's all web-based, and eventually there'll be AI and other things. And you've got to stay up with the times. You can't be sitting back just relying on what worked for you a few years ago. And as we go forward, I feel like it's going to accelerate, and you just need to be cognizant of that and be aware.
So I think there's a few areas, and ultimately the future park, whether it's an adventure park or trampoline park or some other venue, it will be immersive in some way. So whether that's in the overarching experience, it will, whether that's in the aesthetics, whether it's in the lighting, DMX lighting that's tied to how they're jumping on trampolines, et cetera, like it will have much more immersion. The guests are wanting that. They don't want to just go into a warehouse anymore as much, right? And it all depends on what's available in their market, et cetera. So I understand that too, right? Competitive pressures. But ultimately, generally, we're leaning towards a more immersive experience, a gamified experience. We've talked a lot about that gamification here, gamifying the entire experience, having that persist over multiple visits, but then also personalized. And this is where AI is going to be able to help, both personalized in the type of experience they have while they're at the park, but also the experience they have when they leave in the types of marketing and communications you have with them, but really truly personalizing their experience so they can have an individualized experience while they're there. We're not there yet. We're getting there, right? That's why we're talking about the park of the future, and having lots of data is important, et cetera. But those are the directions in which we're going. And I think what's important is that we just continue to experiment. You try new things, right? Just try to think about random ways that you can use some of these new tools that are out there and not be afraid of it. One of the things I really like, I've known Ed from Zero Gravity for a number of years through the Roller Skating Association as well. He has a roller rink. But one of the things I've always respected about him and what he does in his parks is he experiments and tries things, right? He's done vending instead of concessions, for example, like trying that out in Zero Gravity, see how that does for his F&B. He does really unique promotions and other things, but he's not afraid of just trying something and seeing if it works. And if it doesn't work, cool, you learn from it and then you go on to the next. And so the only way we're going to achieve the park of the future is to continue to iterate and try and experiment.
I have a very challenging question for all three of you here. If you could sum up the one takeaway that you want the audience to take away from this today, and sum it up in one sentence, what would that be?
I'll try.
Yeah, Brandon, grab the mic to say.
I'd just say, don't be afraid of the future. Experiment and iterate and learn. There's some periods and commas.
There was a semicolon in there. You're good. Yeah.
That's
Semicolon and
some dashes. If it's AI, it's got dashes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, don't be afraid of technology.
That was beautiful, Greg. Yeah.
Ditto. Me too.
Awesome. Well, let's give these gentlemen a big round of applause.
Do y'all have any questions? Oh, Jeremy's got his hand up. He was ready to go. He had that spring loaded the whole time.
Yes, Greg
course,
will be
Jeremy's
signing autographs after this.
So, regarding the Intelliplay that you were talking about, the band, you were mentioning redemption. The redemption piece of that, are you guys leaning to straight digital redemption, or are you working towards a actual physical prize function of that?
So I think that would depend on, well, I'll back up. So I've actually experimented with some digital redemption ideas a few years ago with, Christine, a friend of ours. So I don't know that we're quite ready for pure digital redemption. I think there's things that there could be really interesting opportunities there. I think, though, what we're really looking to do with the Intelliband is just to replace the game card. So not the game card readers; those are still required, right? And there's a number of different reader companies that are here exhibiting and others. But you being able to store your credits and your redemption points on your band versus a card, so they don't have to worry about carrying a card around. And so for us, it would be both physical redemption, right, from a redemption store or from a redemption machine, vending machine, or just through potential future digital redemption as well.
I would just say from my perspective, and again, this is probably more as a parent than it is as a business owner, but as a parent, I know my son likes physical things. He doesn't necessarily just want to get some digital something. Like he actually wants, if he gets a physical icy or a physical something on the way out of a business for what he had achieved that day, for him, that's like an immediate instant gratification in his brain. And so when I think of why you would want to provide those redemption items, it's because they get that physical something in their hands as they walk out of the store, and then there's a dopamine release for that. And
like the Call of Duty, the skins and the characters and stuff where you can upgrade, and then it's a potential revenue line as well.
yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think I spent $1.5 million on Robux and Fortnite cards for my kids. So yeah, there's a
Well, I mean, I think
something to
there's like the other angle. So I mean, how many of you are familiar with Pudgy Penguins? Pudgy Penguins has a couple of different arcade machines as well as they have some plush. But Pudgy Penguins started as a digital NFT, so it was like a non-fungible token. It was a digital collectible, and they then pivoted into the location-based entertainment industry. And so I think there are ways in which you could have actually both. You could have a physical item that they go home with, but then also a digital skin that they or collectible that they're able to use as well.
Well, to be conscious of everybody's time, we will go ahead and cut it there. So one more time, a big round of applause for our panelists up here.
Stand up. We really appreciate all of you attending today. This was our third time doing Attraction Pros Live, specifically at IATP. I think it was Brandon's 900th time on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
In Attraction Pros Live specifically. And for everyone out there in podcast land who is watching and listening to this,
We are all Attraction Pros! Woo!
thank you all so much. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Enjoy the rest of the conference.